Hello there and welcome to my guide for painting Flash Thompson and Gwen Stacy for Marvel Zombies. As you can see, the first thing I've done is spray them both white with some matte white spray from Colourforge. I'm going to start with the black areas first, and for that I'm going to use Abaddon Black. This is Gwen Stacy's shirt, her headband, her boots, and Flash Thompson's belt. I'll then wash all these areas with some Nuln Oil. While that dries, I'm going to use some grey cere to start painting in the white areas on Flash. That's his shirt and the shoulders on his Letterman jacket. I'll then highlight these areas with a 50-50 mix of grey cere and matte white. This will be followed by a 30-70 mix of grey cere and matte white for the second highlight. And for the final highlight, but just the final highlight on the shirt, I'm going to use matte white. All the black areas will be highlighted with Corvus Black, followed by a 50-50 mix of Corvus Black and Eshin Grey. I'm then going to use Gene Sealer Purple to paint Gwen's skirt, and I'm going to wash it with some Druchii Violet. While that wash dries, I'll use Macragge Blue on the Letterman jacket, and I'll wash that with some Drakenhof Nightshade. I'll then relayer Gwen's skirt with some Gene Sealer Purple, followed by a 50-50 mix of Gene Sealer Purple and matte white. I'm then going to paint her jacket with some Scarabite Green, which we wash with Corellia Green. Moving back to Flash and his Letterman jacket, we're going to start to highlight that with a 50-50 mix of Macragge Blue and Calgar Blue. This will be followed by Calgar Blue just by itself. I'm then going to paint his jeans with Rust Grey, which I'll wash with some Nuln Oil. We'll go back to Gwen and relayer that Scarabite Green now the wash is dry. Make sure you avoid all of the recesses. This will be followed by a 50-50 mix of Scarabite Green and matte white for the first set of highlights. And then the same mix but at a 30-70 ratio for the second. I'm then going to paint her bag with some Mournfang Brown, which I'll wash with some Army Painter Soft Tone. While that dries, I'll go back to Flash and I'll relayer the Rust Grey on his jeans. And this will be followed by a 50-50 mix of Rust Grey and Phoenician Grey for the first set of highlights. Then a second set of highlights just using Phoenician Grey. I'm then going to paint the football in his hands the same way as I painted Gwen's bag. Next, I'll start working on the red details with some Mephiston Red, that's Flash's boots, along with the F on his jacket, and one of the books that Gwen is holding. All these areas will then get washed with some Carroburg Crimson. Now I'm going to move back to the bag, and I'm going to do a first set of highlights with a 50-50 mix of Mournfang Brown and Scrag Brown. This is for the ball as well. And this will be followed by Scrag Brown just by itself. We'll then highlight the red with a 50-50 mix of Mephiston Red and Evil Sun Scarlet, followed by a second highlight of Evil Sun Scarlet by itself. For the football's laces, I'm going to use some Morghast Bone. And these will get highlighted with a 50-50 mix of Morghast Bone and matte white. I'll then move to the rest of the shoes, and I'm going to paint the white details with some grey cere, followed by a 50-50 mix of grey cere and matte white. And lastly, matte white just by itself. I'm going to paint Gwen's other book with some Rhinox Hide. And I'll paint both belt buckles with some Iron Hand Steel. Both the buckles and the book will then get a wash with some Nuln Oil. Once the wash on the book is dried, I'm going to do a 50-50 mix of Rhinox Hide and Catachan Flesh for the highlight. Next, I'm going to start on their skin. For Flash, I'm going to use Bugman's Glow. And for Gwen, as I want the skin to be a little bit lighter, I'm going to use some Cadian Flesh Tone. All the skin will then receive a wash with some Reichland Flesh Shade. While that wash dries, I'm going to paint the grassy areas on the bases with some Deathworld Forest. And the mud area on Gwen's base will get painted with some Dryad Bark. I'm then going to go back to the skin, and I'm going to do a 50-50 mix of Bugman's Glow and Cadian Flesh Tone for the first layer of highlights for Flash. But before I go any further, I'm going to paint their eyes in. First of all, I'm going to use some Abaddon Black. This will be followed by Matte White. And then finally, once again, Abaddon Black for the pupil. Then I'm going to use Cadian Flesh Tone to continue the highlights on Flash, and I'm also going to use it for Gwen as well. This will be followed by a 50-50 mix of Cadian Flesh Tone and Kislev Flesh. And then for Gwen, and only Gwen, I'm going to use Kislev Flesh just to brighten things up even further. I'm also going to use a little bit of Corn Red to paint in some lipstick on Gwen. Next, I'll use Ogryn Camo to dry brush the grass on the bases. And for the mud on Gwen's base, I'll use Gothor Brown. I'm going to use a little bit of Dawnstone to paint that stone area on Gwen's base. And some matte white on Flash's base for the markings on the grass. Next, I'll use Morghast Bone to start painting their hair, which I'll wash with some Army Painter Soft Tone. Then I'll paint the rims on the bases with some Abaddon Black, before finally washing the bases with some Agrax Earthshade. Once that wash is dried, that's Gwen and Flash Thompson done. A pair of lovely little models that come on have done. Really fun and really easy to paint. They didn't take too long to paint either, only rocketed in around about 3 hours for the pair. And they're incredibly simple, incredibly easy to do. If you follow this guide, I really hope you found it useful, and well, I hope you subscribe, give the video a thumbs up, and I'll see you on the next one. We've got plenty more Marvel Zombie stuff to do, so thanks again, and goodbye for now.